Maxpedition, one of my favorite gear companies. But Maxpedition is known for its bags and its packs, and of course, the number one is the Jumbo. And I'll tell you guys, there's a lot of different companies making quality packs out there. But Maxpedition is just rugged, and I love their really unique designs. But one of the things that they've gotten into lately, and you can see it right here, are their tools, which to me is just an excellent extension of what Maxpedition does. And we have the Ferox, which is just a really fairly inexpensive blade, and yet a really nice little utility knife. It is a flipper, and it has a really nice design, has a nice black oxide finish to it, really nice grips, and it's just a great little folding knife, very utilitarian. But it's only about $29.99, and a lot of people have kind of dissed this knife because Maxpedition has such great quality and has really high-end gear. But I think Tim was just trying to see, what about the market? How would this be received? And I think it's been received very well. And really, this is an excellent little utility pocket knife. And to be honest with you guys, I don't really care about tearing up really my nicer quality knives. And I like having something that, I can have thrown in a pack that if I pull it out, I'm not really worried about it. But yet, that'll hold up. And I think that's one of the things that the Ferox will do. You can get it in the tan, the green, and the black. And you can get it serrated, or you can get the plain edge. And then the Acantha, which is a tactical pen, and this also comes in a silver color. And, I really like to have a tactical pen. There are things and places that you go that you can't really have CWP, or you can't even carry a knife. But having a pen kind of slips under the radar. And on top of that, it's a decent writing pen. But right here, we have a couple of tips. And these are made for pressure points and being able to use as a defensive weapon. And you can see it has like a cone shape here. We have more of a flat tip here. And these just screw in very nicely and very unobtrusively. Really, you wouldn't realize that this was a tactical or a defensive weapon. And the end just slips right over and covers it up. So this is just a really nice form design. And these are only $39.99, which is a great price. And again, really knowing that Maxpedition, the quality that they put in a lot of their bags, and I'll tell you what, guys, you pay for quality. So Maxpedition is not cheap. But, their tools, when they first came out, they were just kind of basic tools just to use with your gear. Then they came out with something a little nicer. In fact, something really extremely nice. And this is the Excelsa. And I think this is a really high quality knife. I think the Ferox was introduced, it did well. A lot of people really liked it, especially guys that really like the Maxpedition line. Of course, it has a really nice box design. It's in hard foam. This close foam padding is really just exceptional. The box itself is nice. First and foremost, the knife has been safety checked, and it is really sharp. I do too many gun reviews. But this is a really exceptional blade. It's D2 steel. You can see that it is in a flat grind. It's a really simple, understated design. And the scales are titanium. So even for this large knife, it's very nice in the hand, and the weight is really nice. It's 5.1 ounces, and they do make the smaller version. And it weighs 2.7 ounces. Now open, the knife is just over 8.3 inches. Closed, it's 4.7 inches. And the blade itself is 3.6 inches. When I first got this knife, I was kind of not all that excited about it. Just pulling it out of the box, I like the packaging. And I thought, well, it is D2 steel, it is titanium. But I don't know, I just thought, well, it's just kind of plain. And I think what happens is a lot of times we get all these really fancy designs that are on the knives and a lot of different texturings, different type scales. There's a lot of writing on the blade itself. That's one of the things about this knife. There is just no markings on the blade whatsoever. In fact, also on the scales themselves, there are no markings on the scales except for Maxpedition right here on the lock. And it's kind of understated again. It's just hidden right here. Has a really nice clip. And it does have a nice rise here to fit in your pocket. And even though it still has some room, it really rides decently in your pocket. The Excelsa slides down in your pocket really easily. The knife rides very nicely on this edge of your pocket seam. It draws out very nice. It deploys really nice. You can change the clip from tip down to tip up. Does have a nice lanyard loop. One of the things about the front of the knife too is just an excellent presentation, and I think it was Jeff at Cutlery Lover really, in fact, he really kind of got me excited about this knife because that guy knows knives. And one of the things that he really pointed out, and I'm going to have to here too as well, is that all of the fixtures are just so well finished, and it's just a smooth design. It's very classic, very, but yet it's very modern. And then back here we have our Torx screws here. And one thing that's really exceptional about this blade is that it has a Torx wrench included. In fact, there are two different sizes to take care of the two different sizes on your Torx. And of course the pivot, and then also to hold the scales together. And that also allows you to take this knife apart if you need to clean it and maintain it. And you'll notice the thumb stud, and it's kind of at an angle. It's a very unusual kind of design. A lot of people will take and push here, and it takes a little bit of getting used to. But for me, I grabbed it and immediately pulled it out. And really, you don't even need to flick your wrist once you get the hang of this blade. It comes open very quickly, and that has a lot to do with the tension that's on the blade itself. And if you watch, when you bring it into the closed position, kind of snaps into place. And what that's going to do is allow the blade to ride in the scales and not pop out, especially if you're wearing it tip up. And then when you deploy the blade, it snaps right out. It is a frame lock design. Now the frame lock typically, and I'll tell you with different blades, especially Rick Hinderer's designs, I've had a hard time with these frame locks. And typically I'll hold my hand right here and I'm pressing on the frame lock when I'm trying to open and deploy the knife. But one of the things about this knife is that for some reason I want to grab the top of the frame. I don't naturally push right here on the frame lock. Now one of the problems with a frame lock is that you can inadvertently push it out too far. And in fact, that was one of the things that Rick Hinderer really made his name on, was the lock bar stabilizer. And there's usually on the Rick Hinderer design knives, you see a circle right here, or a disc. And what that does is it keeps this lock bar from pushing too far out. And you know, with this design though, I noticed, and I also read about it, that right here is a disc, and it's hidden behind the frame lock. And this is your lock bar stabilizer. So it's not obtrusive, it doesn't show here, and yet it keeps you from extending the frame lock too far out. Now I mentioned that this was D2 steel, and it's a drop point blade, which makes it really great for utilitarian purposes. But one of the things too about D2 steel is it's high carbon, but it's high chromium. And this really allows for good sharpening, keeps an edge really well. And D2 steel is an exceptional steel. It is a high carbon steel, so you're going to need to keep it nicely lubricated, just like you would really any tool. I'm not a real big stainless steel guy. I really like the carbon steel. And on my Benchmade Adamas, it also has the D2 steel, and I really like that steel for cutting. It's 58 to 60 Rockwell hardness, and it's cryo heat treated. So it's going to hold up well, and it's really going to keep its edge longer. Now if you'll notice also, there is a bevel on the top of the spine of the blade, so it really gives it a very well-rounded place on the knife. And that really helps if you ever need to get your thumb on top of this blade. And two, it keeps the sharp edges down. A lot of times you'll just have a flat edge, and it makes an edge here, and this just really makes it smooth. It's smooth to deploy. Now it does have jimping right here along the top of the spine here, and it allows you to really get a hold. The scales themselves though, if you'll notice, has these scallops, and they really ride with the fingers. You can take your index finger, you wrap your fingers around it, it gives it a nice feel to it. And two, to me, the clip is not too obtrusive. It doesn't get in the way. And if you've ever held a knife that has a large clip and you grab hold of it and it seems like the clip is jabbing into your hands, especially with a knife this size, sometimes you will be putting more pressure if you're doing something to the blade and using it in certain instances. And this knife, as far as I've found, is just a really comfortable hold. Plus it has somewhat of a guard here to keep you from slipping forward. Also, the back is curved very nicely to ride in the palm of your hand. If you'll notice, it's just a natural feel to it. So the grips have a lot of thought put behind to make this very ergonomic. And it has bronze washers instead of the Teflon washers, so it's going to just hold up well, and it's going to keep from wearing. Man, does that blade come out sweet. Very smooth. You can feel a little bit of the tension right here, and that just allows it to lock into place. There is no play with this blade. I mean zero. There is not any wiggle whatsoever. It's very secure. And the blade in the scales is aligned perfectly. A very well designed piece. You know, you can adjust some right here at the pivot point to make sure that that is aligned right, but this one was just straight from the factory, perfectly aligned. The Excelsa is made in Taiwan. And I'll tell you what, guys, the quality control that they're putting together for these knives still makes this really exceptional. And really, for a knife like this, the quality is top-notch, and it's just an excellent design knife. Now, the price on the Excelsa, the small is $119 on the Maxpedition website. The large, this particular one, is $139. You can get a 10% discount using SUCH00 in the coupon code, and that'll give you 10% off. So, you know, you can really get a decent deal on a really high quality knife. And of course, you can find all the different specs on not only these knives, but also the gear at Maxpedition.com, a great website. And I'll tell you what, guys, you'll feel the money sliding right out of your billfold. Be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic. But if you look very carefully, right here, you can see the extension bar. What is that called? And it is even though the clip rides very nicely on this edge of the Excelsa rides very nice in the pocket. Still gives you something to grab hold to. Very smooth. The Excelsa slides nicely down into your pocket. This little open loop area will help save your pocket from getting messed up. It draws very nicely, and it deploys nicely, even with those fingerprints.